Raw this week was nuts. While it did carry on from where last week's episode left off, it was far more crazy and a little bit like somebody was just making it up as they went along. For example, some angles that were set up on the show were then undone before the show had even ended. And that is a little bit like a dog that chases its tail. Like, you keep going after it, and sure, eventually you're going to get to that tail, but then what do? When you get to the tail, you let go, and then you go after the tail again. That made me feel really dizzy. I'm not saying that it was bad, but it was a very eyebrow-raising experience, and it left a lot of questions that I would have liked answered, and yet I didn't get that, especially what the hell is a special correspondent at WrestleMania 35? That came up on Raw, and I have literally no idea what that is. Anyway, WWE swerved last night's Raw. Why? Here's why. Also, make sure you go out there and get on your Rocky montage clothes, because listen, we got new music here on the Y Series. And yeah, it sounds a bit like a Rocky montage, but that should inspire you, because you can now come up with something that you want to do, and if you use the montage in the right way, you'll be good at it in around about 3 minutes time. Everybody loves a montage. Right, before we get going, it's only fair to address each of these specific incidences in case you haven't watched this week's Raw, and we'll start with Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, who decided to reform the Shield once again, and I swear at this point they've done it more than Motley Crue. Soon we'll be having these big advertisements for our last ever Shield tour, only for 5 years later the Shield to go, that was just a marketing ploy, we're actually getting back together again. The arc of the story went like this, however. Roman Reigns was in the ring, he called out Seth Rollins, and he said to his brother, look man, I understand how precious life can be now. I think we should go and talk to Dean Ambrose and welcome him back into the fold. Understandably, Seth Rollins wasn't too keen on that, because over the last 6 months, Dean Ambrose has been the worst person on the planet. But hey, he loves Roman, and he was willing to do it for him. Then Dean Ambrose arrived, but before we got to learn what his answer was, Elias smashed him with a guitar, because Elias is a giant butthole. This did lead to a match between Elias and Dean Ambrose, and that served as the trigger point for all of this to come together. Because after Dean Ambrose had lost to Elias, who just vanished by the way, he just walked away without saying a peep, Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins were back, begging Dean Ambrose, and he was still like, nah brah, I want nothing to do with it. And you think they would have known this, because Seth himself had gone to Dean backstage prior to this, and once again Dean Ambrose had said, nah brah, I don't want anything to do with it. And yet as soon as Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley and Baron Corbin, or the boring boys, were beating down Reigns and Rollins, Ambrose was coming back to make the save, and to a point that makes sense. I'm sure there's still good feelings within Dean Ambrose, much like Darth Vader, but when Rollins and Reigns put their fists out to do the Shield pose, and Dean did the same, well, that didn't make no sense now, did it? And don't get me wrong, it was a really cool moment, doubly so because the crowd absolutely loved it, but it kind of felt like it was done just to swerve us all, because at the start of the show, Dean was like, no, I ain't doing nothing. And then by the end, he had gone, I don't know what I was thinking. Sure, boys, let's go for one final ride. And hell, they could swerve us again, given that we don't know if Dean Ambrose is actually leaving the WWE, because maybe Dean turns on Roman Reigns at Fastlane, and we actually do the Roman Reigns versus Dean Ambrose match there, which has been rumored for a damn long time. And look, you could get away with that. Again, if Dean does intend to leave the WWE, it doesn't matter if he wins or loses, hence why he lost to EC3, and hence why he lost to Elias, and he lost to Drew McIntyre last week. So just do that again. The idea of setting something up only to squash it halfway through the show, though, continued when we start to look at what happened with the women. At one point during Raw, Stephanie McMahon let us know that not only has Ronda Rousey been stripped of the Women's Championship, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? But now at Fastlane, we're going to get a returning Becky Lynch. Her suspension was lifted, taking on Charlotte Flair, and whoever wins would become the new title holder. And yet somehow now, as I talk to you, even though Raw only ended around about 16 hours ago, that ain't true anymore. Because during our main event segment, Rousey just marched out there, demanded that Stephanie McMahon returned her Women's Championship, which she did, and then Steph jumped on that and went, okay, cool, I'm going to agree to that, Ronda, for no reason whatsoever, but I'm also going to change the rules at Fastlane, change the stipulations, because now, Becky Lynch, if you lose, you're out of here for good, but if you win, I will make the WrestleMania 35 match a triple threat. I just want to point out there, if all the McMahons hate Becky Lynch so much, why the hell would you even give her this opportunity? But also, all of this happened so darn fast. It was like being told you were going to be punched in the face, covering your face, and then someone booting you in the balls instead. You never saw it coming. Once more, this wasn't rubbish by any stretch of the imagination. It was just nuts. There I was buying into this new match that had appeared from nowhere, and then before the end credits rolled, I had to remind myself, oh wait, that isn't something I need to care about no more. And if it had only happened once, I don't think I would have even blinked. But on the same episode of Raw, it happened twice in two separate narratives. And yeah, it didn't ruin the show. It's not like we took a big sledgehammer and smashed everything into dust. I just think there may have been more logical ways to get there. And the only real reason to do this is because of the swerve. You reel the fans in, and just when you've got them, bam, you're off heading in another direction, and everyone's like, wait, what am I doing? I need to catch my bearings. The change here is usually you get around 2 weeks to process that, but because we needed to finalize the Fastlane card, WWE was firing them off like swerve bullets. And while we are talking about swerving too, we really should discuss that Triple H promo, which continued on this trend of the company trying to remind you time in and time out that wrestling ain't real. I always enjoy that when I tune into wrestling. It's why I don't like movies. If Brad Pitt isn't on the big screen as soon as that film is done reminding me that what I've just seen is a bunch of codswallop, I don't want to invest or waste my time. But during the game's promo about Batista, Triple H was keen to remind us that when these two do clash, it won't be the character, but it will be the man behind it looking back at him. And also, none of this is storyline, and that yes, it is indeed very real. And yeah, okay, cool, you do what you want, but you are now telling me that everything else I'm seeing on Raw or SmackDown or a pay-per-view is actually utter guff, unless then everybody else comes out and says, yeah, like Triple H said, this is also real, so don't worry about any of that fake stuff, because what I'm doing is super legit. And if someone does come out here and they don't say that, that's when you know it's absolute fluff. And I've got no real massive problem with it, but when it's happening here, and then it's happening on Twitter with Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch, and then you're also getting segments where someone is literally asking Braun Strowman, is wrestling fake, and then he throttles them for a while. And once more, if you haven't seen Raw, that absolutely happened. Well, it all feels like a swerve. I mean, a swerve from 1982, but a swerve nonetheless. I don't think this is going to become a trend because, again, I really do think this was about putting everything in place, given that we do have Fastlane in around about 5 days. But still, in the context of how it was presented to us, man, was it really strange. And yeah, there's also that big question about how sincere Dean Ambrose really is, but right now, we can actually give WWE the benefit of the doubt because we could get to Sunday, and like I mentioned, Dean Ambrose could turn out to be a double asshole, and we actually go back to the heel turn, which, let's face it, up to this point has been a massive failure. Mostly because we had that one segment where he was getting a doctor to jab his ass. It's only inconsistencies that are annoying, and now WWE has a few weeks to wrap all of them up in a little bow. And if that doesn't happen and Dean Ambrose does just shake Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins' hand, well then you can get mad. And remember, it was all done for the love of the swerve. It does seem likely that maybe WWE won't give up on these entirely though, because if we do go back to last week's Raw, we kind of had a swerve with Batista too, or at least with Ric Flair's birthday party. You remember that? We all thought we were about to celebrate Flair's 70th, and then instead, Batista was backstage dragging cameramen around and beating up an old man. And if anybody now is saying they knew that was going to happen prior, I would call you a lie, because mostly what everybody wanted was for Becky Lynch to come out, presume that Charlotte would be at Ric Flair's birthday party given that she's his daughter and he's her dad, and I don't know, pushed Ric Flair's head into the birthday cake. That's usually what WWE did, but they didn't. They did something different, which was a swerve in and of itself, and was a swerve because you didn't expect it. So maybe I'm completely wrong, and WWE is now going back in full brigade when it comes to the twist. Just don't do it like Vince Russo used to do it. I know we all look back fondly, but eventually all of that stuff, it got way out of control, hence why in WCW, we got Judy Bagwell on a pole. And if you don't know what that is, go to Google right now and type in Judy Bagwell on a pole, That actually happened, and so did Viagra on a pole. There was so much crap on a damn pole, I never want to see it again. And if all that stuff starts with Swerves, then kill Swerves right now. I don't need it. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you think about Swerves, Vince Russo, Raw, SmackDown, Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, Seth Rollins, The Shield. There's loads you can talk about. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling. Go and read more articles. They're on WhatCulture.com. Follow WhatCulture and Twitter WhatCulture WWE. And you may as well go and watch Raw Ups and Downs, because then it all ties in. It's like a little two-way street. My name is Simon Miller from WhatCulture. Thank you very much for watching. And also, I hope you enjoyed the new music here on the Y series. I'm not gonna lie, I enjoy it so much. I have it on my computer and I've been listening to it all day. It makes me the biggest loser on the planet, but I'm proud to be that because it makes me #1 and hopefully I'll get a shiny damn medal. Ha!